My bully has a crush on me. My bully has a crush on me. Today was supposed to be no different than any other day of the week at Crestwood High. But of course, nothing in my life is ever actually ordinary for very long. Still can't believe what took place, and I am not quite sure where to begin, but perhaps if I write it all down, I can try making sense out of it. Tommy Miller. Just the mention of that name sends shivers down my spine. He's the kind of kid who can turn a sunny day into a storm cloud in a second. For 3 years now, he has made my life a living hell, shoving me against lockers, laughing as his little gang of bullies throws crumpled paper or nasty insults my way. I used to think he was just some angry kid trying to prove something, but today? I found something much darker lurking beneath all that swagger. It was during English class. Mrs. Thompson had assigned a group project, and I knew that I was just going to end up working in a group with Tommy. It's like fate has a sadistic sense of humor. So we were all huddled together, racking our brains over themes in The Great Gatsby, when I felt the weight of his gaze. I did, and for a split second, he would look away, expecting that same disdain. But what caught my attention was him staring at me with something I hadn't seen before. Longing, maybe? Confusion? I don't know. It was weird. Later over lunch, I heard my best friend Sarah talking to Lily, the cheer captain. They were giggling about how weird Tommy had been acting lately, apparently. He'd been extra edgy, even avoiding picking on students. I should have been happy to hear that relief washed over me, but then why did I feel something else? Pity? His family life is not the best from what I have heard. Abuse, anger, sadness just swirls around him like a poisonous fog. That's no excuse to bully, but it's hard not to humanize him when you know what he goes through. Then, everything spiraled out of control. I had stayed after class to help Mrs. Thompson straighten some books, and I hadn't known Tommy was hanging around outside the door waiting for me. Finally, I went out into the hall, turned, and there he was, leaning against the wall, his arms folded across his chest as if he dared me to say one thing. My initial instinct yelled at me to run, but curiosity kept me standing there, frozen in position. He smirked at me and said, "Got something to say? Or are you just going to pretend I'm not here?" I opened my mouth, quip at the ready, but then he took another step closer. "Stop acting like you're better than me, okay? You're not. You're just a little loser." Yet his eyes didn't agree with him. I watched him flailing in some mute anguish beneath the surface of his arrogance. Was this the point at which he'd finally go too far? I couldn't help but feel that he might just snap. "Tommy, you don't have to do this," I added in a soft tone, trying to tap into whatever piece of humanity was left within him. "What's going on with you?" His smile was gone, and in that second, he reached into the hall, his hand closing around my wrist, pulling me into a deserted classroom. My heart jackhammered and my alarm amplified. "Do you know what you do to me?" he growled, an edge of his voice between anger and desperation. "I get it now. I like you and it makes me sick." His hands were shaking, the panic flashing through his eyes, darting across the room. I felt trapped. A part of me wanted to scream, while another part felt so much pity for the angry boy, twisting in his own emotions. Then he snatched a small metal ruler from the desk and flung it against the wall in what was, to my mind, an eternal moment. It thudded with a loud noise, much like an explosion inside that quiet classroom. He released my wrist, his voice tense. "I don't want to hurt you, but I can't control it." I stepped backward as the panic welled inside me. "You don't have to hurt anybody, Tommy. Please." He turned to me then, his breath catching, his face dark and empty. I could see the boy who used to bully me was still buried beneath all that rubble in his heart. "Just go," he whispered finally, the fire in his eyes doused and replaced with regret. I can't do this." I didn't waste another second. I ran, my heart racing, footsteps reverberating down the hall. I turned once to see him still standing there, a shadow of his former self, anguish melding into despair. What am I even supposed to make from this? Sometimes I feel like my heart is trying to align itself to the darkness in people's hearts, finding beauty in their pain. I had picked up something today, that even the worst of bullies hide fearful secrets, and perhaps they too need help. But I won't be anyone's punching bag. Tomorrow I'll say something to Sarah and to Mom and Dad.